What's up, guys? Welcome back to WOYS Live. It's Sunday again. It's Sunday again. You know what it is. We're back. We're back. Today, I want to talk about the NDP's leadership race and some of the main characters involved in this particular race. The NDP is having their leadership debate this Thursday. I think it's Thursday. Yeah, it's Thursday, 27th. And I will be live. I plan to be live with you guys on Thursday. It's going to be in French, so I'm probably going to be watching the English dub or something. And we're gonna have here's what we're gonna do today. I realized going into that particular live show that I haven't really paid attention to this NDP leadership race. I don't know. It just didn't interest me until now, right? And I decided that this show today we're gonna do some research, some legwork before we actually hear these NDP candidates speak. I think that's important. At this moment, just looking at their profile, I know who seems interesting to me. Anyways, you guys, welcome to WOYS Live. Welcome to WOYS Live. That's what we're going to be talking about for the most part today. But say hello to me. Say hello to me. Who's live with me today? Who's live with me? Say hello. Say hello. Yeah. So the NDP is, as you know, is going through a bit of an identity crisis, right? They're trying to redefine themselves. So that the stakes of this leadership race couldn't be higher. There's two ways this can go for the NDP. Some might say there's only up from here. I beg to differ. I think there's still levels to go in terms of before the NDP hits rock bottom if they don't find themselves quickly. And so that is why this particular leadership race is big for the NDP, is big for their future. And truth be told, the way the parties are set up right now, the main parties at the national stage, the liberals and the conservatives, the way they're set up right now, it does present an opportunity for the NDP. And part of what I would be looking to see in this leadership race, in this leadership debate coming on Thursday, is who is ready to answer the call, who is ready to fit what is needed to compete with the conservatives and the liberals. I don't consider the bloc a serious party, to be honest. You guys know how much I don't like the bloc. I think they're a joke. I say this all the time. Anyways, somebody say hello to me. Who's live with me? Who's live with me? Tell me if you tell me who's live with me. Say hello. Okay, let me see who's in the chat with me today before we get going. Okay, so Papa says, did you look at Frontier Lithium yet? Did I look at Frontier Lithium yet? No, I did not look at Frontier Lithium yet. But you know what? Maybe I'll check that. Now I'll check that out. That's a different topic to what we're talking about today, though. But Papa says, well, Connie brought brought on $70 billion from the Middle East. Is Connie still a nay? Braveheart says, hi, Braveheart. Is Connie still a nay? I didn't say Connie was a nay. I let you guys make that decision. Is Connie a nay to you? I don't know. You make that decision for yourself. I don't want to get in trouble. Anyways, here's what I'm saying. Today as I said, we're going to talk about the candidates participating in the NDP leadership race. In case you don't know who they are, I'll read those to you. I've put it in the description for this particular live show. Who have we got? We've got who, where are they? Where are they? I put their names down somewhere, sir. Oh yeah, there's Rob Ashton, former labor leader, basically labor. He's a long-time labor activist and dock worker. Currently, the president of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union of Canada. So really, he's got that working class, that kind of roots. He's bringing that pedigree to the race here. I'll read you. I'll talk about him a bit more in a little bit. We've got Tanille Johnston. who is an indigenous woman. She's from the Wy Kai First Nation, I want to say. She's a social worker, a mother, city councilor in Campbell River, BC. Yeah, so she's the first indigenous woman to run for the federal NDP leadership. And we've got Avi Lewis. Avi Lewis is one of the front runners in this race. We've got Avi Lewis. Avi Lewis is a veteran journalist, a filmmaker, and an activist. And he's known for co-founding The Leap, a movement that links climate action with social and economic justice. So that's Avi Lewis. He's one of the front runners in this race. And we've got Heather McPherson, who arguably is the top dog in this thing. Oh, Papa says I was supposed to study frontier lithium. I was, but so it is a lot of work to prepare for these shows. So sometimes if what we're talking about doesn't really link to it, I try it. I'll don't worry. I'll make time to look into frontier lithium. Okay, Papa. I'll make time and look into Frontier Lithium. I promise you. Okay. It's just it's pretty busy these days, and and I haven't had time, unfortunately. Abby, hello, Abby. Great to see you again. So let's get into these NDP candidates. Oh yeah, no, I didn't get through the list. Heather McPherson. Heather McPherson is a member of Parliament for Edmonton Strathcona. Long time MP. Yeah, so she is one of the. You could argue she's probably the leading candidate. She's the one that maybe you might expect to win. She's got that experience in federal politics. So maybe it could be her. And maybe the underdog in this entire race is Tony McQuail. Tony McQuail is a longtime NDP member. He's a farmer, a community activist, and essentially his background is very grassroots. He and his wife ran a regenerative farm and they built renewable energy infrastructure themselves. And so he's deeply involved in rural and agricultural organizing. So that's Tony McQuail. Don't worry, well, you'll see a little bit more about some of these candidates now. I was just really curious about these guys, just because, as I said, I can't say I know anything about, or I know anything specific about like their policy positions, or really, what these people are bringing to the table, right? And so this show, I wanted to before NDP voters go to the polls and vote their candidate, before we even hear them in the debates, I figured it's probably a good idea for us to see what these people are about. So first person up, and I'm not going through these in any particular order. Here's what I want you guys to do. Just what we're going to do today is we're going to establish first impressions about these candidates. And so as we go through, we figure out, okay, what positions these guys hold on certain issues and those kinds of things. What I want you to do is rank each of these candidates from 1 to 5. So whoever your first candidate is, rank them number 1. Whoever your second candidate is, rank them number 2. There's 5 of them. Whoever the least appealing candidate to you is, rank them number 5. Of course, this is a first impression. This is meant to be a first impression. You haven't actually seen these people debate. For me, here's my criterion for judging this candidate. Predominantly, I want to see, in my head, I'm going to be imagining how each of these candidates will fare against Marconi, against Pierre Poilievre on the national stage. I want to see. Hello, Adoy. Welcome to the show again. Yeah, so I want to see how each of these candidates would fare on the federal stage. It's not just about saying a whole bunch of flowery things that might appeal to certain people. Obviously, there's a few ways the NDP can go here, right? There are some people that suggest that with the liberals having moved towards sort of a center left kind of like position right now, some people have said, well, possibly maybe the NDP can occupy that space and be the voice for continual action on climate change, because seemingly the liberals have abandoned that particular mandate. So people, a lot of people, there are a lot of people within the liberal base right now who are looking for an option in terms of someone who is going to be a champion for climate action, right? So there's that possibility there. There are also people looking for someone who would represent more. Some people, I guess, it's workers' rights. Although I would argue the liberals and the conservatives are doing a decent job on responding to or keeping workers' rights front of mind. Anyways, that's a lot of talk. That's a lot of talk. Let's actually see who these guys are. Let's see who these guys are. So I am going to start with Rob Ashton, and then I'm just on the NDP website here. Uh, I'm just on the NDP website here. And Rob Ashton, this is how he describes himself. Rob Ashton describes himself as a dock worker, a union member for over 30 years. He says, I'm also a father, a stepfather, and a grandfather. I know what it means to put in a hard day's work, to worry if the paycheck will stretch far enough, and to stand shoulder to shoulder with others to take on the boss and win. Today, I'm the president of the International Longshore Workers Union Canada. I fought for workers and my community. I've built coalitions across movements for fairness, equity. I've tried to listen carefully to be a problem solver and back up my words with action. I've kept 12 autonomous locals united for over a decade, so I know how to build consensus even when it is tough. I've worked hard to make our union one where everybody belongs. For me, solidarity isn't a slogan, it is how I've lived my life. My union taught me that division is the weapon of the boss, and I've seen firsthand that if we stand together, we win. Wants to be Canadians want to be able to afford to put a roof over their heads, food on their table, look forward to a comfortable retirement, and still have enough left over to enjoy life with their loved ones. Instead, we face an affordability crisis, growing inequality as the gap between ordinary people and the ultra rich widens every year. The NDP must once again become the party of workers and everyday people. I'm running to unite this party and make workers' voices and the voices of everyday people the driving force of Canadian politics. I commit to having difficult conversations, rebuilding trust, and building a movement that people across Canada can see themselves in. I'm ready to fight back against the loopholes that let the ultra rich and big corporations call the shots, and a system that treats housing like a casino for investors instead of homes for people. It is time to put people before profits every single time. I hope you join me. So that was Rob Ashton's pitch. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. If it was me, just on first impressions, I've gone through some of these things, and I don't want to bias you, but I'll give you my opinion as we go along with each of these candidates. If it was me, I think going up against a Pierre Poilievre and a McCartney, I would choose Rob Ashton as the leader of the Conservative Party. That he would be my choice. And I'll tell you why. I think he brings a certain level of credibility in terms of, like, he has fought for workers in his career, right? He has that pedigree of fighting for workers, right? And that offers him a unique kind of. I think that contrasts well when you're going up against again going up against Pierre Poilievre and going up against McCartney. Certainly, I expect that to play well on the national stage. So I think that working class authenticity is very much in his favor. He would be somebody that I might vote for. I might rank first. Um, he's got obviously, as I said, the credibility of those labor ties. And one of the things that Rob Ashton has said he is interested in bringing into the national picture is having job guarantees. I'll explain that in a little bit. But he also wants and essentially the job guarantees thing. I shouldn't postpone that. I shouldn't kick that down the road. Is essentially that anybody who wants work should be able to get work, essentially. And he wants to make that basically a national thing where if you want work, you are guaranteed a job. That is now obviously that is a great promise to make, but essentially the question you need to ask is, well, what kind of job are we talking about here? It's like, oh, you want a job, but I can guarantee you a job at McDonald's. Well, that doesn't really help anybody, does it? No. So obviously there is that, but that is of course the promise that Rob Ashton is one of the promises Rob Ashton is running on. He's running on taxing the rich. This is a classic socialist promise, right? They're gonna tax the rich, you know. I don't know. I don't know to what extent that is gonna be feasible. But that is the promise that he's putting forward, and obviously he has talked about putting people before profits in his bio here. So here's the downside for Rob Ashton. He is not a polished politician. Although you could argue, working in the unions as he has, that he has played some politics. Having led the union in that way, that you could argue there is some politics involved there. Some ability to negotiate and some of those things that are useful in politics, transferable skills. So he is not a politician, and that could go against him, or it could go in his favor. But he does have that credibility of he has spent decades in the trenches, and that could differentiate him from establishment type candidates, maybe like Heather McPherson. The risk with Rob Ashton is he hasn't so far as I've seen, just doing groundwork. He hasn't necessarily been clear on climate energy policies. And that could be a vulnerability for someone who is seeking to represent what is left, the issues that are being overlooked by the Liberal Party as we speak, that are being overlooked, that certainly are overlooked by the Conservative Party. So if you're seeking to pick up the slack where the Liberals and the Conservatives have dropped off, then Rob Ashton is lacking that part in what he's running on. Okay, that would be the risk with Rob Ashton. Okay, so that's Rob Ashton. But I like the candidate. I like the candidate. I'm not going to lie. I like what he's about, and I think that is a useful voice to have on the national stage. What do you guys think of Rob Ashton? Somebody get in the comments. Talk to me. What do you think of Rob Ashton? What do you think of Rob Ashton? You guys let me know. In a minute or so, we're gonna move on to the next candidate. But what do you guys think of Rob Ashton? How do you rate Rob Ashton? If you were given him, I'm not, don't rank him on the candidates list. But when we get to the end, you can do the rank. But as a candidate, as a quality candidate out of 10, what do you say? What do you say about Rob Ashton? Do you think he is the quality of candidate we want to see on the national stage? Um, while you guys are thinking about that, actually, I wanted to bring this in real quick. The NDP is going to use in their voting system. They're going to use something called a ranked ballot, and it occurs to me that not many people know what a ranked ballot is. But a ranked ballot is essentially a thing where basically when you go to vote, you are allowed to essentially pick a first choice, a second choice, maybe a third choice, that kind of thing. and then basically they're doing what is basically a ranked ballot, but also round by round elimination of candidates as well. And so there is a chance that even if you're second in the voting, after a few rounds, if enough people have chosen you as the second best candidate, there is a chance that you are still able to win the election. Okay? So that's what's going on here. So even if a candidate doesn't seem like the favorite, there is still a chance they can win the election. Okay? Anyways, the NDP, the reason why I was asking you about the quality of Rob Ashton is this. The NDP had, I think this is potentially very problematic for the NDP. And I'll tell you why. The NDP had a whole bunch of when I was looking at this list, I was thinking to myself, where are all the high-ranking NDP, all the the premiers? Where are all these high-ranking NDP people? Why are they not running in this election? This is literally life or death, I think, for the NDP. If they don't show up correct in the next election, they could find themselves in a really, really bad spot. They could find themselves in PPC kind of spots. You know what I mean? You know, without a seat in parliament, if they don't come correct. Anyways, so I was looking at the list of top notch like NDP guys and women who decided not to run in this race. Charlie Angus. Charlie Angus finished second in the 2017 leadership election, and decided not to run this time. Don Davis, the current interim leader, I'm surprised he didn't choose to run because he seems like such a capable leader. Obviously, I haven't heard his position on things. He obviously has been a steady hand just to see the NDP through so far. David Eby, I am glad he didn't run because I don't know how that man is running BC right now. I've said this a few times that nobody can convince me that David Eby is a great premier. Not yet. Maybe he'll surprise me in the near future. But man, David Eby makes me want to scream sometimes. But also, I mean, even if you don't go for David Eby, there's also like Wab Canoe. Wab Canoe is the most popular, literally the most popular premier in Canada right now in terms of the approval ratings. Why didn't he run? And if you're looking for establishment kind of like cred, Mike Layton, also Toronto's city councillor, Mike Layton, son of former federal NDP leader Jack Layton, could have run in this race, didn't run. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, wow, what? Rachel Notley, that's another name. That's another big NDP name that also chose not to run. Former premier of Alberta. What is going on? Why didn't they want to run? Anyways, so that's Rob Ashton. You guys are hella quiet today though. So in the end, just save a rank, and let's go to the next candidate here. So the next candidate I want to talk to you about is Tanille Johnston. Tanille Johnston. Here's how Tanille describes herself. Actually, let me see if I have a video of Rob Ashton describing his. Okay, so I actually have something about Rob Ashton actually describing his motivations here. Let's see if I can show you that. Can you guys hear me? You guys can hear me good, right? Okay, so let's actually move on to Tanille Johnston because I realized that time is flying by, and I've spent so long talking about Rob Ashton. So let's talk about Tanille Johnston. Tanille, she goes by the pronouns she, her. That's the way it's written there, okay? She's a proud Liquidax. I don't know how to say that indigenous name. But she's a Liquidax woman from the Wee Kai First Nation. She's a social worker, a mother, and a bold new voice for the future of the NDP. She is born and raised in Campbell River, BC. Okay. Tanille has spent her life fighting for equity, justice, and community well-being. With over 14 years of experience as a registered social worker, She currently serves as Director of Community Program Services for the First Nations Health Authority and as a city councilor in her hometown. Tanille's leadership has always been grounded in action, whether delivering frontline services, building healthier communities, or advancing change within institutions. Okay, Jody Kill says, enjoying the listen. Great, great. Thank you for talking to me, Jody. I was starting to think I was talking to myself for a sec there, but thank you, thank you, thank you. It makes the show feel a lot easier for me when people chat me up. Okay, so I appreciate that very much. So Tanille's leadership has always been okay. I read that part. Where did I drop off? She served on the University of Victoria Senate, the Native Student Union, the Equity Advisory Council, the UVic Student Society Board. Oh, okay. She served on a nation's land committee for nearly a decade before launching into a successful municipal election campaign in 2022 and in 2025 running as the federal NDP candidate for North Island Power River and in 2025 running as the federal NDP candidate for North Island Power River. Anyways, now she's running to lead the NDP into a new era. That's a bold promise. That's a bold promise. One where the party leads with courage, centers equity, and organizes from the ground up. Her vision is clear: diverse and affordable housing, equitable access to healthcare, protecting the environment, meaningful proportional electoral reform. You see, that's a promise that many people have made, including Justin Trudeau, on proportional electoral reform. We haven't seen it yet because it favors the leading parties, of course. So I highly doubt that she's going to actually be able to do that. But she's also promising free and accessible post-secondary education, increasing childcare spaces across the board, building transportation methods that don't alienate rural and remote communities, and increasing the representation and participation of Indigenous persons in local, regional, provincial, and federal decision making. Tanille knows that a strong NDP starts with and will be upheld by listening, driving forward action through grassroots organizing, and stepping up in the House to fight for what is right. She's not here to play it safe. She's here to build a movement. Join Tanille in shaping a party and a country that works for everyone. Oh, that's got me feeling all sorts of good. But obviously we know that it is more than just words, right? You have to be. It's not just about saying the right words. You can use all the right words, but we also got to consider: are you able to deliver what you're promising? So, what do I like about Tanille Johnston? Her campaign is very focused on breaking down barriers, right? She has proposed, I think, removing membership fees to make the NDP more accessible. As an indigenous person, she's obviously bringing that inclusivity angle, and she's promising equity in government, or in the way people are, or in the services that people receive from government. She has pitched her leadership as building from the ground up, that grassroots organizing base, and not just about she thinks that is the building from the ground up is the way she proposes to redefine the NDP, right? And she wants to she does have that appeal, or she might have the appeal for younger underrepresented voters. The risk with Tanille Johnston is that she's not that well known nationally, right? I mean, just if you talk about the other candidates that I've already gone through today, Rob Ashton, has some cred to rely on, and arguably, he brings that credibility to a much stronger extent than maybe Tanille Johnston can compete with. So she's less well known nationally. And so I just on face value, again, I haven't seen these people debate. I will watch them debate live. No, no, maybe not live because that's. I think it starts while I'm still at work. But when I get back from work, I will find the dub in the English dub because I don't speak French. But I will find the English dub and I will come live with you and watch the debates and we can draw some conclusions on how each of these candidates does, right? I know, or I've heard recently that she also had issues raising the high entry fee because you might know that the entry fee for candidates in this particular leadership race is 100K, $100,000, and she has had a challenge raising that. So that kind of shows you some of the difficulty that Tanille is going to have in terms of being able to fight this race, right? She's a strong voice, but maybe not the voice that the NDP needs. For me, in the context of, again, I view her in the context of, is she able to go up against a Pierre Polyev? Does she bring? Is she seeking to represent something that will give the NDP something more? Because they need more right now. They need somebody. If they could go back decades ago, maybe they would bring back Jack Layton, to come and do this for them. Jack Layton was in some ways the perfect leader for the NDP, right? Even if he didn't end up going all the way to become prime minister, but Jack Layton was a great leader for the NDP. Yeah, so I won't dwell too much on Tenno. There's not she's got these great promises about equity. I'm sure the debate will be interesting with her. Jody Kill says, I think the NDP's best bet to survive is to return to labor focus given the current conversation in Canada. That is a brilliant comment. Jody, my goodness. If I had a gold star right now, I would just give you the gold star because that is exactly my point. And that is my logic in thinking about Rob Ashton. That is why I would, just looking at what the lineup is right now amongst this five. That is why Rob Ashton sticks out to me. He brings a certain credibility that is hard to match. Right now, whether he can, I think that will play well on the national stage. That is why I think Rob Ashton is the guy. Okay. Let me finish your comment though. So Jody goes on to say, but that space may be crowded by other parties right now. Yes, that space may be crowded by other parties right now. The problem is that you gotta also sort of think about what Canadians, in my mind, I think you got to consider what Canadians want to hear right now. And unlike maybe in the last two elections under Justin Trudeau, where possibly we were talking about fringe issues, about I think I don't remember which of the conservative candidates lost because his position on LGBTQ rights wasn't particularly clear or something like that. It might have been Andrew Scheer or something like that, or someone. So I think it was Andrew Scheer. I'm not too sure. Um, that is not; those are not the types of issues that are playing that are top of mind right now for people, and probably won't be top of mind for people in the next election, in my opinion. I think that right now people are talking. People want to hear about how we can. Like, I mean, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm on the side of affordable food. I don't know about you. I'm on the side of proper services for the taxes that I'm paying. I'm on the side of proper healthcare. Right? That's I'm on the side of living good. I don't know about you. So I think that's why I think that while that space is crowded, what, for example, a Pierre Poilievre might not have there is the credibility maybe that a Rob Ashton can bring to that conversation, and credibility in terms of actually representing workers, right? Where McCartney might fail in that conversation is he he is essentially cutting workers right now. So I mean, how can you honestly, for whatever justification you might have for what you're saying, how can you honestly say you have workers' rights and workers' well-being in mind when you're cutting workers, and when the economy it's hard. You don't have the same credibility when, well, under you the economy is not necessarily where it should be, I know some people tell me that McCartney's still new in his tenure, but a lot of people actually view him as an extension of Justin Trudeau. Okay. Anyways, besides the point, where I want to keep on time. I want to keep on time because now we're getting to some of the the front runners in this particular election. So I want to talk about Avi Lewis. Avi Lewis is an interesting one. Avi Lewis is an interesting one because he arguably is probably the person people between him and Heather McPherson. I think people expect to win this particular election. That is my first impression, of course. All right, we'll see from the debates what happens there. And here's how Avi Lewis described himself. Avi Lewis is a veteran journalist, an educator, and an activist who brings 35 years of movement building experience to his campaign for NDP leadership. And he's combining grassroots organizing with national media reach to advance working class politics across Canada. I'll tell you one thing though. That first paragraph reads to me like it was written by ChatGPT. I'm not gonna lie. I hate when people make such complex sentences for no reason. Why was that? Did that sentence really need to be that long? He's a journalist. Why did that sentence need to be that long? Anyways, I'm complaining again. As a two-time federal NDP candidate, he contested in West Vancouver Sunshine Coast to Sea to Sky in 2021 and in Vancouver Centre in 2025. I will come back to this later because I think this actually looks bad for Avi Lewis. But I'll tell you why I say that later. As a two-time federal NDP candidate, Avi understands the challenges facing our party and the communities we serve. Between campaigns, he teaches climate justice and documentary film at UBC, preparing the next generation of organizers and storytellers. Let me turn this off. Make sure that your sound is good. Preparing the next generation of organizers and storytellers. His commitment to workers' rights runs deep. In 2004, his documentary The Take chronicled Argentina's movement of democratic worker-controlled businesses shown in occupied factories from Chicago to Cairo. Okay, I low-key think this thing was written by ChatGPT, guys. Anyway, I think this thing was written by ChatGPT. Anyways, this dedication continues through decades of collaboration with unions and social movements, always centering those fighting for economic democracy. In 2017, Avi co-founded The Leap, mobilizing thousands of Canadians to confront the intersecting crises of climate, inequality, and racism through grassroots action. His 2019 collaboration with Alessandria Ocasio-Cortez, Message from the Future, reached millions worldwide, demonstrating how bold ideas can capture public imagination. His 2015 documentary, This Changes Everything, based on his wife Naomi Klein's best-selling book, connected climate action to economic justice for audiences globally. Throughout his media career, reporting for TV networks worldwide, hosting CBC's Counterspin and On the Map, and co-creating Al Jazeera's Fault Lines, Avi has consistently challenged power and amplified voices of resistance. A passionate voice on the left, he pioneered political coverage for youth audiences at Much Music and conducted landmark interviews from David Bowie to Leonard Cohen at CTTV's The New Music. The unique combination of electoral experience, movement leadership, media expertise, and educational commitment positions Avi to unite our party's diverse coalition while expanding our reach to new supporters. Avi lives in Vancouver with his wife Naomi Klein, their son Toma, and their dog Smoke. Okay. All right. So that was Avi Lewis, one of the front runners in this particular race. How do you guys feel about Avi Lewis on first impression? So he obviously brings some pedigree that might impress certain people. he does have some glaring downsides, and I'll point to that for you guys in a little bit. Just my first impression, as I said, I haven't watched him debate. I've seen some interviews with him, and he also has a very active YouTube channel. But my first impression of Avi is, he communicates very well. He's got that charisma that probably will serve him well if he gets elected, in terms of going up against a Pierre Poilievre, for example. He brings that would be good for him. He's got that. Some people might say he's got that climate credibility because of his work with the Leap. So he's deeply invested in progressive climate action. So there's that credibility there, and I'm sure there are people looking for someone who is going to be the champion of climate policies. Now that it seems like this country is moving so far right, that it seems like climate has taken a back seat compared to economic issues. So Avi brings that, and so and he's got that experience of he's got that national media reach that maybe a lot of these candidates cannot call on. Yeah, so that's Avi. There are a few problems with Avi Lewis. Here are some of the problems with Avi Lewis in my book. Avi is self-confessed as he basically said that he has explicitly said that he opposes all new fossil fuel development, including LNG. In fact, he put out a video. He has put out a few videos. Jody's off to hockey. Thanks for joining though. If you guys are new around here, please drop a subscribe. Join me anytime. I do this every Sunday. I make this. I'm live every Sunday with you guys talking about all sorts of issues that come to mind. So join me. Thank you, Jody. I'll see you next time. Anyways, so Avi has got some downsides here, and Avi's downsides are this. He's against fossil fuel expansion. He's against fossil fuel development, right? That is Avi's position, including LNG for that matter. In fact, Avi Lewis has criticized David Eby, the premier of BC, for his support for LNG projects, and he's very much for a clean energy fighter. He fights for that. Now, the problem with that is some people within the NDP may worry that Avi Lewis is a little bit too idealistic, maybe too out of touch. Because, on the national stage, you have to consider that you're going to be dealing with potentially Alberta, which is a very much a resource based economy, Saskatchewan also a little bit, maybe, and you're basically, and that is not gonna play so well when your people are gonna go knock on doors in Alberta, and certain places that want to see resource expansion, fossil fuel expansion, because it is one of Canada's biggest resources, probably the biggest, and they're gonna try and sell a guy that is sworn against fossil fuels. So there is that downside. There is that downside of people, especially in this climate. If you can have a person with the pedigree of Makani in terms of like climate action, is and some of the roles in a lot of the roles that Makani has filled, if you can have that guy adapting, that's what I'll call it. But some people call it changing his tune. Some people call it he has switched sides. But if you can have that guy fully in support of LNG projects, you have that guy considering dropping the emissions cap, maybe talking about like removing the tanker ban and some of those things. You can have that guy doing that. You understand that there is a movement right now where people have gone, okay, we've done this whole, let's be the responsible country in terms of climate, and yeah, we still want to be responsible, but at the same time, as I said before, we're all on the side of affordable food. We're on the side of growing this economy, right? That is one of the issues that Avi Lewis is going to have to contend with on the national stage if he wins, right? Now, are there enough people on the side of climate action right now that will not hurt him? If the economy continues the way it is right now, I don't know that there will be. I don't know that there will be that many people who will sit there and be like, you know what, let's continue trying to move away from our biggest resource in oil and gas and focusing on these things that will take maybe 10 years to deliver in terms of renewable energy. And I mean, and that is the balancing act, the fundamental balancing act that McCartney is trying to deal with now. He's got these nuclear, the obviously the Darlington small modular reactors going on the one side while also developing LNG. That is the balance that McCartney is having to strike right now. That is the reality of things. Here's the second downside for Avi Lewis. Although Avi Lewis decided to mention this in his profile, I read this as a downside for Avi Lewis. He said in 2021 he contested on the federal stage in West Vancouver Sunshine Coast Sea to Sky. He contested to become a member of parliament. He also contested in 2025 in Vancouver Centre as well. Here's why this is a bad look for Avi Lewis. Avi Lewis did not win any of these elections. He did not win these elections. In the 2021 election, he lost to a liberal Patrick Wheeler in West Vancouver Sunshine Coast Sea to Sky. In 2025, he lost to Hedy Fry. Okay, Hedy Fry is no slouch. I think she's the longest serving female member of parliament. So Hedy Fry is no slouch. But here's the thing. Avi Lewis has not shown an ability to win elections on the national stage. Whatever pedigree he's bringing into this, he has lost 2 federal elections. Now, if a guy can't win a seat, the 2 times that he has contested, I mean, are we looking at another Polyev Battle River Crowfoot situation where they go and see if they can find a slam dunk situation for him somewhere in order to get him into parliament? Like, what does he bring if he doesn't have the ability to win on the national stage? So that would be my case against Avi Lewis. And there's obviously that impression that I have right now that maybe he's not the man for this moment. Right? So let's move on. Let's move on to arguably the biggest contender in this NDP race. The biggest contender in this NDP race is Heather McPherson. And Heather McPherson, here's how she describes herself. Heather McPherson says she knows how to build and win. She does, right? She was first elected in 2019. Heather and her team have made Edmonton Strathcona the strongest NDP seat in the country. No lies told. They earned the highest percentage of the vote of any NDP, any New Democrat in both 2021 and 2025. No lies told. Even while raising money and canvassing for other ridings in her area and across the country. Heather grew up in a busy working class family. Her father was a truck driver with his own company and her mother stayed home. Their lives were full of swimming lessons, hockey practices, and camping trips. I'm not sure why. She obviously wants to sound relatable. That's why she put that story there. They hosted large extended family dinners, loud, chaotic, and always welcoming. To make room for everyone, doors were taken off their hinges and laid across makeshift legs, creating tables that snaked through the house and a place for everyone. The sense of inclusion has guided her career from the non-profit sector to parliament and shaped a leadership style that makes room rather than shutting people out. Before politics, Heather spent nearly 20 years working for human rights, sustainable development, and global justice with a master's degree in education focused on indigenous knowledge and sustainability. She has always been grounded in service and fairness. In Parliament, Heather has taken on the toughest files, from foreign affairs, human rights, and international trade to healthcare, seniors, and culture. Her commitment to building a more peaceful and just world has included visits to Ukraine and the Middle East, and she has advanced legislation to protect pensions, defend public health care, strengthen environmental reviews, and support people living with ADHD. Heather is committed to making sure everyone has a place at the table and to the idea that Canadians want to believe again in each other, in fairness, and in good people making a difference. So that's Heather McPherson. As I said, she is arguably the person. I mean, I think she's probably the best contender in this. If she's number, she might just be number one. I would probably put her maybe above Avi Lewis if I was being perfectly honest. The problem, before we get to the problem, um, recently, so here are a few things that Heather McPherson has been doing. She's an MP right now from Edmonton Strathcona. She recently proposed a private members bill in the House of Commons, the Fair Representation Act, which will ban company-backed unions. So that's something she recently put forward. Her argument there was that workers need democratic, independent unions, and people negotiating on their. She believes that people negotiating on behalf of workers must be accountable to the workers and not to employers. That's why she has tabled this bill. I think that's a good position to take. Uh, she also has argued that the NDP needs to rebuild from the grassroots and strengthen local riding associations. So, what does she bring? She is bringing parliamentary experience. Fundamentally, that is something that Avi Lewis cannot call on, right? She's got parliamentary experience. Um, and she's dedicating herself to rebuilding the NDP, rebuilding the grassroots base for the NDP. The risk, apart from the fact that at the moment I'm not sure, I haven't heard a lot of like policy from Heather yet. As I said, first impression, okay. And we'll see where that is when the debate comes up. We'll see where she stands on some of these issues. I hope they discuss policy extensively. But the downside for Heather McPherson, the risk for Heather McPherson, is that she does represent very much the establishment. You know, I shouldn't say she represents, but she might be seen as the establishment. She does have a moderate profile as well, which might not excite the more radical people that might want to associate with the NDP. And so she might struggle to compete on the grounds of being bold, sort of like Avi Lewis has that going for him, where he can be like, you know what, I am against fossil fuels. That is a bold position to be in. Helen McPherson doesn't have a splash like that. She doesn't have that kind of thing. She just seems like a calm, steady hand. Like that's what Heather McPherson, on first impression, seems to bring to the table for me. Yeah. So that was Heather McPherson. Last candidate, because we've got 5 minutes to go. You guys talk to me. How are you feeling about these candidates so far? Because I want to talk about the underdog in the entire race right now. Tony McQuail. I don't know what it is, but Tony looks hella funny to me. I don't know. He just seems like a happy old guy. Yeah, he did an interview, I think, with Rachel Gilmore actually recently on her channel. She does a good job, by the way. She seems to be probably one of the few people that are very much like. She seems to me, I don't know her personally, but she seems to me like someone who is interested in seeing the NDP do well. and she lent her platform to some of these candidates. She interviewed Tony McQuail, and she interviewed what was her name, Tanille Johnston as well last week. I think I saw those interviews on the channel. So you guys, if you're interested in hearing some of these candidates speak a bit more, you can go watch it on her channel. Yeah. So what? How does Tony describe himself? Tony says, Tony McQuail was born in 1952 in Pennsylvania, USA. Oh, nah, I was about to say something, but maybe I shouldn't. These are sensitive times. If I speak, I might get into trouble. But he was born in Pennsylvania, USA. As a 16-year-old, he did draft counseling at the local Quaker meeting house. His draft counseling convinced him he could not cooperate with that corrupt system. He initially planned to go to prison. What? Did I read that right? He said he initially planned to go to prison, but realized he would have to be a tax resistor when released. Okay. I'm not sure what he's getting at there, but he emigrated to Canada in 1971. He worked as a hired hand on a dairy farm and on a barn construction crew. In 1973, he purchased a rundown 100-acre farm in Huron County, Ontario. While farming, he went to university and graduated with a Bachelor of Environmental Studies from the University of Waterloo in 1976. He became a Canadian citizen in 1977. As a young farmer, he realized that decisions made in Ottawa could have a serious impact on his community and farms. He ran as the NDP candidate in the 1980 federal election. He has run 5 times federally and twice provincially for the NDP. He served 3 terms as an elected trustee on the Huron County Board of Education during the 1980s. In the early 90s, he served as executive assistant to Honorable Elmer Buchanan, Ontario Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. McQuail has extensively involved McQuail has been extensively involved in community and volunteer organizations, including the Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario, the Huron Farmers Union, and the Huron Federation of Agriculture. McQuail and his wife ran Meeting Place Organic Farm, a 100-acre regenerative farm, for over 20 years before selling it to their daughter. In the 1970s, they built a passive solar home and put up the first modern grid-connected wind generator in Ontario. They currently have 10 kilowatts microfit solar array and solar water heater. They live on the farm, helping with the farm and their grandchildren. Okay, so that is Tony McQuail. Um, he is clearly, very clearly, the underdog in this race. He's the underdog if I have ever seen any. Right? He's a long-time NDP member. If you like an underdog story, maybe he's the guy for you. He's got this ecological vision that maybe he might bring to the table. I don't know about. I think he's an underdog for a reason. I think he's the underdog for a reason. He does support proportional representation, as a lot of these candidates probably do. So if you're a person interested in that kind of reform, yeah, sure. But careful with people just throwing proportional representation around, and because the question is not whether you can talk about it. The question is, how is it going to actually get done? And so far, you know, everybody people like to throw proportional representation in there because they know it gets the people excited. But let's leave it there. Anyways, what are the risks? Tony McQuail lacks electoral experience. He has never been elected as an MP, similar to Avi Lewis in that sense. And uh I'm not sure about this, so maybe I shouldn't say this with full on with a definite there. But I think I saw somewhere that he was struggling with for meeting the fundraising thresholds as well, like Tanille Johnston was. So, you know, Tony McQuail and Tanille Johnston are probably the biggest underdogs in this race. So I asked you guys earlier. I said, just based on first impressions, you guys are obviously meeting. Maybe like me, you're meeting these candidates. You're actually looking deep. Maybe not meeting them for the first time. Maybe you've seen them. You've seen stuff about them. But this is my first time actually looking relatively deeply into what these candidates are about. And on Thursday, when they have their debate in French, I will be here with you guys. And we will break down how they debate, how they will stack up against on the national stage against a Pierre Polyev and against McCartney. Now, I think the three serious candidates for me are Rob Ashton, as I said, Avi Lewis, for basically he's got that journalistic pedigree that will serve him well, and Heather McPherson, who has electoral experience, right? So, how would you rank? This is where we're going to finish the video today. This is where we're going to finish the live show today. How would you rank these five candidates? You guys should pop that in the comments. If you're not watching live, pop that in the comments. I want to see how would you rank these five candidates contesting for the NDP leadership. That is what I want to see from you guys. Put that in the comments on the scale. Rank your best candidates, make that number one, and rank them all the way to number five. Five being the worst candidate. Here are my rankings. At number five, I mean, it has to be Tony McQuail, right? It has to be Tony McQuail because I can't see the selling point. It's hard to sell Tony McQuail. Okay, so on the federal stage, I'm sorry, Tony. If you're a person attached to Tony, I'm not saying he has no redeeming qualities. I apologize if that's the way that came out. But I would rank him fifth. I would rank him fifth. I would rank Tony McQuail fifth. At number four, I will rank what's her name? I will rank Tanille Johnston at number four. She brings that young energy. She brings that the indigenous credibility, I guess, to the discussion. She might be one for the future in the NDP. We will see. So Tanille Johnston, I will put as number four. As number three, I will put. This is where it starts to get tough between those three, right? Now I've got Avi Lewis, I've got Heather McPherson, and I've got Rob Ashton. So at number three, I will rank Avi Lewis as number three. That's my personal take on this in terms of, as I said, how well I think they will play on the national stage, how transferable that is for this moment. And so I will rank Avi Lewis as number three. So that leaves me with Heather McPherson going up against Rob Ashton. Now, for me, I would rank Heather McPherson as this is this is actually tough, Between Heather McPherson and Rob Ashton, I'm trying to run through like the pros and cons of them in my head, and I'm like, how to make this decision though. I think I will make a final decision. I'll just tell you a tentative one now, just based on first impressions. But I will obviously make a tentative decision. I'll make a final decision. Not that I'm part of the NDP. I'm not a member of the NDP party. I'm not a member of any party. That's why I'm able to be neutral on some of these issues. But between Heather McPherson and here's the thing. Heather McPherson has this experience of being elected. That is That is very, very valuable for someone who will be seeking to lead the NDP on the national stage, right? Now, on the other hand, Rob Ashton has not been elected on the national stage, but he brings a credibility that is also hard to replace. So it's kind of tough like that, right? Like Rob Ashton brings that pro worker labor pedigree that Heather McPherson does not necessarily does not bring. Oh, now I really need to stop talking this up because I got to make a decision. So here's how I rank them, and I'll stick to my guns here because I think I said this in the start. Heather McPherson will be second for me. She does bring the pedigree. It's not pedigree. She brings the experience of being elected, winning as an MP. So in that sense, and she knows how to campaign. So actually, maybe she should be number one. She knows how to campaign. You know what? Heather McPherson will be number one for me, and Rob Ashton will be number two. And I hope that even if Rob Ashton does not win the leadership, I want to see him. I want to see him still contest, still be a member of parliament because I think that voice is very important on the national stage. Anyways, as I said, if you're not watching live, get in the comments and rank these five NDP leadership candidates based on how you feel. How I rank them from on a scale of 1 to 5. One being your the candidates you consider the best, and five being the candidate you consider the least likely to win, the least sellable candidate, if you like. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me today. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. If you're not watching this live as well, when you watch this, please subscribe down below as well. Give us a like, share this with your friends, and join me on Thursday when we watch the debate.